Hello everyone. This is not Britain's Hangout Hour. It's just another discussion with me and Jason. How you doing, Jason?
I'm great, man. Thanks for having me.
Yes, not a writing one this time. This is about October, spooky time. So I thought, I'm gonna have some discussions about some horror books that I enjoy to various degrees, and maybe some I don't like so much. But today I'm talking about one that I mostly liked, and that is Those Across the River from Christopher Buehlman. And funnily enough, that's the book where I found your channel, and that's how we met.
Oh, nice. Cool. The read along or the review?
I actually was reading it, and I found your read along, and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I gotta check this out. So I started reading the book along with the read along. It was fun.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm still kind of questioning whether that format is people like it or not. Some people do, but I don't know. It takes a lot of time. But well, hey, you seem to like it. That's how you found me. So there you
Yeah,
go.
and we've been friends ever since. I remember I'm like, hey, this book's pretty good, and you're just like, oh yeah, it was fine. So yeah. Um, Now I should just for context, I freaking love werewolves, and I was looking for some quality werewolf content. I mean, I know there's Dog Soldiers and An American Werewolf in London. Both are classics. I'm not gonna dispute that. But I was looking for novels of that same kind of caliber, and one of the first books that popped up was Those Across the River, from Christopher Buehlman, who I have a sort of how do I describe this? I've kind of been mixed on his work. Like I really like this one, and then I read The Black Tongue Thief, which was just kind of like a wet fart. I just wasn't into it. Um, yeah, I'm actually reading Between Two Fires right now, which is good. I'm barely into it though. It's really weird. It's a weird one. I've heard people compare it to Berserk, which is not a bad comparison. I can see how people might come to that. I've heard some other people compare it to The Road, which eh, which I can see it. I mean, it has a similar guy and a kid go on a journey through this sort of apocalyptic landscape, though. In this, it's
Yeah.
more. It's not like, aside from that, it's pretty different. It's more fantastical. But I'm talking about Those Across the River today because I read it last year and I thought, oh, that was interesting. And then I started this YouTube channel. I'm like, oh well, guess I should talk about it. So I have Jason here because he also read it and he was like, yeah, it's okay. How'd you first discover this book, Jason?
Actually, it was a suggestion. So as you mentioned, I do these read-alongs, and I don't pick the book. The viewers do. Actually, you have to be on my Discord server to submit a book, as you know very well. You've had a couple of winners.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, but that's how I got it. It wasn't. I can't remember who submitted it, unfortunately. But yeah, it wasn't something I discovered on my own. So that's how.
Jason, would you say you're particularly interested in werewolves, or just kind of like, eh?
Uh, I enjoy them. It's kind of like I don't know with the films like The Howling, and I grew up on like American Werewolf and stuff. Like I enjoyed all that, and I think I had werewolves kind of had their heyday, and I was part of that heyday. But they're Yeah, I would say that they're the least played out, one of the least played out of the like classic monsters. Like I feel like vampires, you, it's going to be damn hard to get me into something that involves vampires. I feel like I'm so bored when I hear vampires. But werewolves, yeah, I dig werewolves, all right.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Apparently, Buellman also wrote a vampire novel, or I think he's written two of them. I haven't read them yet, but maybe one day, maybe one day. But also I was intrigued by the historical setting of Those Across the River because I'm like, oh, a historical horror book, huh? And yeah, it's pretty. And I liked it. There was some issues I had with the ending. But we'll get into that. It's one that's stuck with me in a weird way. I know you're just kind of like, I like to really think about books. Not always. There's
Yeah,
some
no.
books that are just fucking terrible.
Yeah.
They're
You
clean
you
out of my
do.
mind.
And that's why I really want to try to read that one book you absolutely hate, because I think that's the only book I've ever heard you just rail on
Oh,
completely.
you mean
Most of the time, yeah,
the
what's it called?
the
I always
devil
forget.
takes you home, which I have right
Yeah,
here.
I like how it's like right there within reach because you're like, I must keep my enemies closer, you
No,
know?
it's not that.
Um,
I just haven't given this yet.
oh, okay.
I'm I
Yeah, because
remember you said a while, or somebody told me, he's like, you should give that on like a giveaway. Like, here's this book I absolutely despise. Does somebody want it? I might
yeah,
actually do that. Actually,
yeah, you should. I think that was me that brought it up just to give it away, and who knows, maybe someone will find something. But yeah, you're generally I feel like you're generally more forgiving with books than I am.
well,
You
sure,
try
yeah.
to, like I said, you think about them and you like try to find. There's a lot of booktube channels out there like that, like Leaf by Leaf and stuff. I feel like he just appreciates books and literature so much that he doesn't. He kind of looks past the shortcomings of them, and so yeah, I get why. I could see why someone would enjoy this book and like look past the shortcomings. Whereas me, like when something hits me like a wall or a brick, I'm just like, it kind of upsets me. I think because I'm so passionate about storytelling that when something just is like nails on a chalkboard, it's just kind of like, it makes me mad.
I get that. Yeah, no, I remember I remember at the end of this book, I was just like, that was because like the first half I really enjoyed because I'm like, oh man, great stuff, great atmosphere. I want to know what's going on, and then the second half happens. You're like, okay, and then it kind of keeps going. You're like, okay, and then like the ending's kind of like, well, that happened. But again,
Yeah.
I want to save that for um as we
So we're
move
gonna talk
forward.
spoilers. I guess I don't want to spoil anything if we're gonna try to keep it like spoiler free.
Oh, I
But
mean,
what were
I do hope to spoil when I do these discussions, I do tend to spoil them, but I'm trying to
okay?
like keep it a little organized here,
Sure.
so we're not just jumping all over the place. Um, but yeah, the story follows a guy named Frank Nichols who's the narrator of the story. He's a professor, if I remember right, of history. Here he was, and then he got with Eudora, which is his wife, lady, friend. If I remember, they describe in the book they're going to get married. They just haven't done it yet because of reasons.
Correct. You remember that correctly.
Have you ever seen any of those silent movies and like the block of text shows up when they're like pantomiming at each other? There's like a scene in this where it kind of reminds me of that when he like flashes back to how he met Eudora. I
Hmm.
don't know. It was kind of weird.
Yeah, like you said, I think stylistically this thing really grabbed me. I believe it takes place in the 30s, right? 1930s. Is that right?
Yeah, I think so.
And yeah, it was a different setting. I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. I knew werewolves were probably going to come based on the book cover I have. I know your book cover is different, but yeah, and I like the characterization for the most part. I felt like Eudora was a little too like, I don't know, underdeveloped, I guess, for lack
Yeah,
of a
I've heard
better
some
word.
people say that, and I can see that for sure.
Yeah,
But yeah, I agree. I like the I like the town. Very King esque that he creates this
yeah,
town that feels believable. Of just strange, wacky characters.
yeah.
um,
Especially what's his face? I don't remember his name, but the older guy.
oh yeah, Martin, the
Martin, yeah, he
who,
was my favorite character until
yeah,
he
he was
wasn't.
great. He was great.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, they have this. But I liked Eudora and Frank's relationship. It was a nice kind of. It was a nice romance. I thought so anyway.
yeah. I mean, it had that like that old movie kind of feel to it, right?
Yeah, like they're
So
on
it
the
didn't.
same page. Like.
Yeah, it didn't it didn't feel authentic in a realistic way, but it did feel like that, like you said, silent movie or something where it's interactions from a different time, I guess.
But I mean, let me tell you, the one thing that stuck out to me, and this is such a small thing, and I remember mentioning it on your Discord, but they bang all over this book. It is ridiculous. I'm just like, oh my god, man. I mean, I'm not a prude or anything like that, but man, like
Yeah, I mean, young love, right? Young
I know. I'm
love.
just like, damn, they're just fucking, like just getting at it.
Oh, I think it's important to talk about like why the protagonist went there, right?
Oh
Didn't he
yes, that's
inherit
right.
the house, right?
There's a plantation across the river that his great grandfather, if I remember right, either great or it's something great. I don't know if there's a number there, but he was a Confederate war veteran. He was also a particularly nasty slave owner, which we'll play into that later. So he's gonna write a book about the history of the place, pretty much. Even though his aunt said, "Hey, we got the house because your grandma died. Don't take it. Like, just burn it to the ground."
And he's like, "Nah, I'm gonna go have a lot of sex with my girlfriend in that house. Thank you very much."
I mean, I get it, man. It's like, oh, nice little place. We can just hang. Oh, look at this quaint little town. It's just good stuff. And
Yeah.
I thought it was interesting that I thought it was interesting how the racial elements were. I mean, it was certainly there, but it was kind of like when I watched True Detective season 3. I was kind of surprised that they didn't drop the N word more. No, I mean, I don't think it's like a Tarantino movie where they're just dropping the N word left and right. But I thought like there would just be like some people like, there was
Yeah.
some in there, but I was kind of like, huh, I thought there'd be more like, thought it would be more
Yeah.
pronounced.
I agree with that because it's always tricky to know how far you go with that, right? How
I
how
know,
far are
yeah.
you accurate to the time? Like I recently read The Heavenly Table, and there's, plenty of dropped N-words in that one, when appropriate, not just randomly,
I
but
know, like, yeah.
when the scenes make sense. But it's like, yeah, as a writer, a modern writer trying to write historical fiction, we're always seeing it through the lens of the present, and
Uh
so
huh.
we look back and we're like, how much do I really want to talk about this? But then also, do you want to sacrifice the sort of authenticity of the time? That's why I kind of stay away from
I mean, it's
historical
certainly
stuff.
there for sure, and then like like later on in the book, the more it becomes more pronounced. The book is kind of about how the sins of the past often bleed into today, which I think is an interesting idea. But again, don't want to get too ahead of myself. But it starts out as a little quaint little town, and then it just goes wrong from there. So
Yeah,
yeah, here we are.
here we are.
um, yeah, I mean, I'll have to say, I mean, first half of this book is really good. Like, I could not take my eyes off of it. Like, it was really good. I enjoyed myself a lot. Like,
Yeah,
really well written, atmospheric. Town felt real. I could envision a lot of it because I'm a visual reader. I mean, I wouldn't call Frank the deepest character in the world. I mean, he's just a guy.
and I think that was one of the shortcomings for me is that, and I won't get too ahead of it, but how he does have this past, right? He has this familial past, and I was hoping that that would have worked its way in a stronger manner with him. Like I would have liked to have him, I don't know, have just some more interior struggles. And yeah, like you said, he was just a guy, you know?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, he likes to. I mean, he likes to joke around. Or I mean, one of his traits is he likes to joke around when things start going down, And I remember you were just like, "What the fuck?"
Yeah.
That bugged you
Yeah.
so much.
It
I'm
did, it
like,
did because,
you must not know
go
very
ahead.
many people who do that, because I've met
I
people who do
mean,
that.
but to the extent. Now, I'm really referring to later in the book when shit hits the fan, but he is in such a predicament and he's like laughing and joking. And I was like, no fucking way. No way
Maybe he's just laughing at
would
the.
anybody
Don't
do
they like
this.
strip him naked and like throw him into a cage? If I remember right.
Yeah, I didn't want to spoil it, but yeah, that's exactly. He's like naked in a cage, and there's like these fucking creature. This guy. I don't remember exactly, but he's in a terrible, terrible situation, and he just starts laughing and cracking jokes. And I'm like, what is happening right now? And I get what you're saying, though. I get that some people, when they are frightened or nervous or something, they try to make light of a situation by cracking a joke. Totally get it.
Yeah.
But I think, at least for me, it wasn't conveyed in such a way where it was believable in that moment.
I mean,
And
that
that's
makes
really what
sense.
threw me off. Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, he's a guy. He's a flawed guy for sure. I mean, he was yeah, he was banging a lady who was married. That's not cool. Um, well, I mean, she's
Oh,
not
that's
married
right. I forgot
anymore,
about
but
that.
she wasn't married anymore by the time the story started.
That's
He
part of the reason why he
also
left, right?
has PTSD. He does, but it's not as prevalent in the story. Which I mean, I'll give you that. That's one thing. I'm like, I wish they kind of expanded more on that, but I guess that's not what the
Yeah.
story was about.
No, no. But yeah, I think that would have helped it. Yeah, that's the thing about Christopher Buehlman. I think he's a great writer. He definitely has a way with words, but yeah, there's just some weird little shortcomings he does. After reading three of his books, I'm seeing commonalities finally.
Mm-hmm.
This was the first one I ever read of his, but I was interested enough to check out more of them because of stuff I've heard. Um, but yeah, I guess the part I'd say my favorite part in the entire book though was when they're in the woods.
Mm-hmm.
I think they were like hiking or something. I can't remember what they were doing exactly, but then they see that kid.
Oh yeah, that's my favorite part too.
That
It was
was
so
like
good.
grade, yeah, that was like grade A like horror movie trope, but like awesome. Like it was, I genuinely that was creepy to me.
I mean,
But that was
I thought you got kind of mad because he was like joking about it. And I'm like,
no, 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 no. See, that's when I thought it was accurate because that scene in a horror movie, right? It's when things start seeming a little weird,
yeah,
but the protagonist is in denial or the characters are in denial, right? Because they're like, "Oh, we're still in this normal little town in the 1930s. This isn't that weird." And so that is when I think him making light of it was appropriate. It's later in the book when things are just batshit crazy that he's joking around and you're like, "What the hell?" But that
he's
was, I remember
smoking.
reading that. Yeah, I remember reading that part and just, I'm like, okay, this is cool. Finally, we're getting into the creepy stuff. But unfortunately for me, that was kind of the end of it.
Yeah,
Like,
I
you
also
know,
like when they actually go in the woods and things kind of go haywire. But then after that, I'm kind of like, that could have been done better.
yeah,
Could
exactly.
have been what's the word? Not dragged out more, but it could have been expanded on a little
Yeah,
better.
I think part of the issue with that, in my opinion anyway, was the when they're linking the let's call it the dark force, the antagonism of the
Yeah,
entire story. Like when they're linking that to the main story, and then you get to the end and you're like, okay, I see who was who. It's sort of that could have been done better, I guess. It felt like it was just shoehorned in there just so people could say, oh, okay, here's the connection. But yeah, I don't know. But yeah, same thing. First half or so, like you said, is interesting, and then it just kind of like goes weird places.
yeah. Like I said, very Stephen King esque. At least to me, it was like with the small town and just getting to know everybody, and they meet this other guy. His name's Martin, I think.
Hmm.
He's like the town eccentric, pretty much. He lives in a little shack. And him and Frank hit it off because they're both kind of outsiders in this kind of small, quaint town where everyone's kind of like, who are these who are these carpetbaggers?
Yeah, he felt. I remember he felt attached to him because he was a man of books and
Mm.
learning, whereas everybody else was kind of just like podunk, country people, and so that's why he like had this attraction to him.
Yeah, he also has a cannon, which and they're like, why the hell do you have that? And he's all like, I shoot it off on 4th of July on occasion, even though he's
Mhm.
even though he has sensitivity to loud noises, probably from the war, which he doesn't really
Oh
know.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
that's right. I forgot about that.
yeah, but yeah, small town's really nice. I don't know, I'm just a sucker for that kind of old town with a curse kind of thing, or maybe not a curse, but there's something weird going on. Yeah, like I said, Stephen King plays with that a lot. Like Salem's Lot, it especially.
Hmm.
And
Children of the Corn.
yeah, and Buehlman really plays with that here, except it's with you know, lycanthropes. um, but yeah, I mean, a lot of this book is atmosphere, which I don't mind as long as it's I'm like, okay, this is. Yeah, I'm more willing to go along for the ride. I'm like, all right, let's see where this takes us. And
Yeah,
if I remember, they have this little thing where they put pigs and they let them out um
the wilderness.
in the wilderness. Yeah, they're like, why
It's
do you
like a
do that?
ceremony.
Yeah, and they're like,
Yeah, it reminded me. Yeah, it reminded me a lot of like Wicker Man or something, like a pagan sort of ritual. That's the vibes I got from it.
yeah, I can see that. It's yeah, yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, definitely it has that vibe, but they don't go across the river. No matter what, they don't go across the river. They don't explain why, and to be honest, I don't even know if they know why. Except for there's some people who do know. There's also like black vagrants, if I remember, who come into the town, who also sometimes hang out and do stuff. Which that was also kind of like okay, because it's like deep south, where I'm like, all right, I'll roll with it, and then things kind of go haywire from there.
Yep. Yeah, that was part of him kind of, I don't know, red herring maybe. I don't know. Yeah, it's been a while since I've read it, so a lot of the real finer details are kind of lost to me. But
Yeah, you said you remember the like major points of the book, so I guess we can just go into that.
but as
Uh,
you're bringing these things up, they're reminding me. I'm
um,
remembering.
so the major points of the novel. Well, he arrives, and he kind of. It's kind of like a lot of this novel. It is very. I don't want to say it's slow, but it's definitely slower paced. It's when you kind of have to. Oh, how do I put it? Well, it is slow. I'll put it that way, for lack of a better term. But it's not bad by any means. I don't think so, anyway.
No, yeah, there was like the writing. It was very easily read. It was very readable, and then there was enough color to the characters, I think, to kind of keep you going. Even though, yeah, I think it did take a while for anything creepy to really happen. Um, I can't remember exactly how far into the novel it was, but yeah, I was never bored when I was reading it. Even
Mm-hmm.
before stuff happened, I was never like, oh man, when's something gonna happen? So yeah, I would say he kept my attention.
Yeah, no, he's very good at that, and because the first half of the novel, I think it's like they're building suspense for those across the river. Ha ha
Hmm.
ha. So yeah, he meets Martin. They hang out. He kind of gets to know around the town. Him and Eudora hang out a lot, and they also just again, I have to mention that they bang so much throughout this novel. It's ridiculous. It's just, I mean, I
You
don't know,
must
man.
like it. You keep talking about it.
I don't know. I'm just kind of like, okay, this is a thing.
It's a
Era,
thing.
I remember reading on Reddit. Some people are like, I was actually reading on Reddit the other day, and some people were like, I didn't really like Eudora all that much. Just kind of seemed like, oh, what's the word? It seemed kind of fan servicey. And I'm like, I didn't get that vibe, but I can see,
You
you know,
what do you mean? Like the sex stuff, like as
yeah,
fan service?
yeah,
Oh,
I guess so. I don't know. It's weird.
I don't know if that'd be considered fan service. Maybe just kind of like a cheap tactic to pull readers in, maybe. But my complaint wasn't so much with that. It was more, again, like I said earlier, was that she just felt hollow, like not a very three-dimensional person. She was very
I
one-dimensional.
can't. You know, in all honesty, I can't wait till we get to the ending so I can just go like, what was that? Because there's a moment in this book where it almost lost me. I was like, oh, what the fuck was that? You know, like it was almost like a comedy at that point. You're just like, what the fuck? Sounds like something right
Yep.
out of a Mel Brooks movie. Like it's just
Yep.
but you know, we'll get to that. But yeah, so I really like the town, and I really like the atmosphere that Christopher Buehlman is going for in this novel. He clearly has a very he's clearly a polished writer. He knows what he's doing.
From a prose standpoint,
Yes.
and from I think he's got a great prose for the most part. I think he also has a great sort of first act, maybe half of a book,
Yeah. No, I
you
can
know.
agree
But
with you
then it
there.
just kind of like, yeah, he doesn't know how to like just land the plane. I guess it's very much very reminiscent of Stephen King, where
Compare him to Stephen King
great,
a lot in this because
yeah, some great concepts, but yeah, just some weird tangents and typically lackluster endings.
yeah, no, but Frank is curious on what is across the river because that happens to be where the plantation was, and that's what he's researching. And the people are kind of like, "Don't go over there," and he's like, "Well, why not? Just don't." If I remember, even Martin's like, I think even Martin specifically tells him not to go. But what does he do? Of course, he goes over there. Eventually, curiosity gets the better of him, and then he sees some horrors over there. Um, my favorite moment of the book, which you mentioned, is also yours, is when he's walking around in the woods and he meets that little that black kid, or any black. I
I
don't
think
know.
he was half, right? Half black,
Yeah,
half white, if I
yeah, I
remember
think he.
right. Yeah.
Yeah, um, and like he doesn't have any pants on, so he's just kind of like, oh yeah, it's like what? And he's confused, of course, and he's just like,
Hmm.
oh hey, how's this going? And he's just kind of he's trying to talk to the kid. I think is what he's doing, and he's also like, um, trying not to get creeped out. And then finally he just books it.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a very effective scene for me. That was like classic horror movie. Okay, this is the point where we're showing the audience something's not quite right, but we're putting the character in a situation where they're questioning reality a little bit. They're starting to be like, okay, I'm kind of getting freaked out here. But it's just a taste. It's just little bit of what's to come. But yeah, that was awesome. I love that scene.
Yeah, no, it's really good. It's well written. It's very atmospheric, and it's really creepy. Or like, Frank, get out of there now! And like we mentioned, he has a habit of like joking when things like go down, because I'm guessing it's like a defense mechanism. And he's just like trying to like talk to this kid and like joke with him, and then he just gets freaked out because I don't remember exactly what the kid does. I think he smiles at him, if I remember right.
Yeah, God, is there something about his appearance that
Yeah, his
throws him off?
teeth, if I remember
Yeah,
right.
his teeth are they're like filed down or something, right?
Yeah, and then that's when he's
Yeah.
like, "Fuck this," and he leaves.
That's
um,
exactly when I'd be like, fuck this too.
I mean, I don't blame him. I'm just like, I mean, You'd have to be like that guy he brings along with him when he's like, you know what, fuck this. I'm gonna get my badass World War I friends, and we're gonna just fucking shoot all these. I'm getting ahead of myself. But yeah, that is probably my favorite scene of the book. Is well, either that or the very beginning. There's that great first line. Let me. He came out to see me in the cage because I belonged to him. You know, like that.
That's a great first line.
I thought that was a baller first line. We talked about
Oh
it in
yeah,
our
for
first
sure.
line video, or our prose video.
That's true. Yeah, Buehlman, he's got chops, man. I'm telling you. I think it's just there's just elements that he doesn't grasp or doesn't have an ear for, or maybe doesn't. Maybe an editor, like a nice editor would, or a skilled editor, I should say, would help him, dredge that stuff up. But
Oh yes, authentic. The period feels authentic. I'll put it that way. That's
yeah,
also something I enjoy, which is also something I've seen in Between Two Fires as well. I'm not an expert on 30s America, but I like how the lingo is different. It's not just modern day people, modern day speak. He doesn't go like,
yeah, it
"Hey,
didn't
dude, what's
feel.
going on? Yeah, let's hang
Yeah,
out."
yeah. Well, it also didn't feel like you were reading a novel from the 30s. It didn't feel like you were reading like John Steinbeck or something,
Sure,
where
yeah,
it's like so far where sometimes it's like, okay, I got to slow down while I read this a little bit because things aren't written this way anymore. He had a very modern voice, but then was able to capture, I feel like, that era believably, to where it would keep the attention of the reader without dragging them through a bunch of like difficult prose.
yeah, yeah, exactly. He's definitely good at combining the modern and the archaic, I guess you could say. I mean, it's not like a oh, whose prose is really difficult to read. I don't want to say. I mean, I would say Lovecraft, but I pick on Lovecraft a lot, so I'm kind of bored with that. I don't know. Anyway, but yeah, no. Then they have this little ritual where they put out pigs in the woods, and
Hmm.
if I remember, I think they stopped doing that, and that's kind of what causes the conflict.
That gets the eyes on them, yeah.
Yeah, it's again
Who's
kind of
his new
remind
boy?
it kind of again it kind of reminds me of it, how the townspeople kind of just prefer to ignore the the evil that goes on within the town, pretty much.
Well, it's like you said, you're not really sure if they know about it or if it's just this tradition that's gone
Yeah,
on and nobody questions it, right? This is just how it is, and like the very notion of questioning it is like scary and it's frightening to
yeah.
them.
Even to them, they're just like, what are you doing? Like, why? And
Yeah,
they're like, I don't know. I still want to. I don't feel like doing it anymore. It feels like a waste of resources. And they're like,
yeah,
no.
exactly.
Or
We must
somebody
do it.
does. I forget the exact context, but for some reason they stop getting the pigs. I think it's after Frank's little excursion in the woods with the mixed kid.
Yeah, I think it's after that.
Um, yeah, and then the people across the river are not happy, and
Nope.
they send like a message like, "Keep sending the pigs" or something like that, and they're like, "Fuck that." So, as you do when you get threatened, you get a mob and you grab a bunch of guns and you go out into the woods. It's America.
Yeah, that's how you do it,
It's the
right?
American
That's how
way.
we do it. That's how we do it, I guess. Yeah.
And of course, horror movie logic. It goes bad, and um, one of the guys gets like his head blown off or something, and Frank gets captured. Oh wait, no, I think I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
The
He doesn't
wolves.
get captured till far later.
Oh no, I think the wolves. No, 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 no. Wait, I think the wolves attack him at his house, and then he, Chekhov's cannon, as I called it, uses the cannon to ward them off, and then Eudora gets bitten.
Yep.
Yeah, and then that's when I think they go into the woods to go kill the wolves. By the way, they're werewolves for those who. I think it's Martin. Like, if he didn't pick that up, like, Martin basically spells it out. He's like, they don't like silver. Like, okay, so this is what kind of book it is.
Yeah. I mean, if you didn't know it was about werewolves by now, I think we've dropped the hint a few times. But yeah, werewolves.
Yeah, then they drop the bomb that, like, Martin is a werewolf, just, like, right in the middle of all the chaos. You're like, what the fuck?
Yeah,
that came out of nowhere. But I'm like, okay, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we get to the last half of the book, which is just like, it kind of whimpers instead of going out with a bang, you know. I mean, I've thought a bit about the ending, and I actually had something that sort of clicked with me the other day, but you know, it's I was trying to save it for this video here.
So where do you want to go next? Like, from the capture onward? Because that's when the novel really started falling apart for me.
Well, okay. I guess we'll talk about. I guess we can back up a little bit and go like to the like. What were some like parts you enjoyed about the first part? Be right back, real quick.
Okay. Well, I mean, like we already covered them mostly. You know, Martin was my favorite character. I really liked him. As far as just his interactions, he was a very colorful personality. Had a very colorful personality. I'll keep you company while Britain is using the facilities. But outside of that, it just the setting, like you mentioned. But I wouldn't say event-wise there was anything that was really captivating. It was just like this sense of space, a sense of place, that you were. I don't know. It felt nice to be in, I guess, in a way. Which always, you know, with the wherever there is light, there must eventually be darkness, because this is a horror novel after all. It takes a long time to get there, and again, as we mentioned, the pivotal scene where he meets the boy in the forest is really when I was like, okay, cool, finally, yes, yes, yes. And then, but after that, like he said, you know, once Frank gets, you know, attacked and then captured, he's in this cage. So it brings us full circle back to the very beginning. That mysterious line he utters. You know, I was in a cage because I belong to him. That's another thing I'd like to say too, is that is a very ominous line. That's a very like creepy line. And then you get to that point.
He uses a lot of canine imagery, which kind of fits well with the
yeah,
line.
like a dog, yeah, exactly. But like but what's weird is when you get to that part in the novel, it's like what I was saying. It's just he's cracking jokes, and I'm like, wait a minute, what? This is not the tone that I expected when I read the first page.
I'll try and be fair here and say that maybe he was just like laughing at the absurdity of the situation, but yeah, no, I'd probably be more. I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, I gotta get out of here now, you know?
No, I agree, but I think again, I think it's possible to convey that, like you're saying. I think it's totally possible. Just the way Buehlman wrote it, I didn't buy it.
Yeah,
I think that's the thing. Is like a lot of times in books or movies even, you can have a situation that you argue is believable. But if it's not communicated in a believable manner, either with cinematography, prose, whatever your medium is, it falls flat. It feels weird. It feels awkward. And so that in itself is kind of is an art, because you know when we're writing fiction or creating films, we're trying to evoke a certain sense of you know, a certain emotion in somebody else we don't even know. And so for whatever reason, that just didn't work with me. I was like, what the fuck? But maybe for some people they loved it, didn't bother them.
I mean, I don't know. Most of the reviews I read for this book was positive for the most part. I mean, I read some reviews that were kind of like it was okay. I just have kind of like, I really like, the thing is, like, it's so close to being a really good book, and then like the second half happens and you're like, what the fuck was that? Especially when like Eudora and fucking Martin show up in fucking werewolf form. It turns into a goddamn superhero movie. I mean, I love superhero movies, but you're like, what the fuck is this? And it's like, you know, and then it just kind of. Well, okay, it doesn't really go like if for like there's this black dude who kind of comes to town, and if I remember right, he comes to town and he'll kind of
Yep.
hang out with everybody, and you know they have a little store, and funnily enough, that guy's the sheriff because he's also the sheriff. I think the store town or one of the town owners is the sheriff. Um, and it turns out this guy is the like he's the head honcho of those across the river. Um, Also kind of lackluster, though. Again, I kind of thought about it. And I'm like, okay, I think I know what he was going for, but at the same time, I think it could have been done better for sure.
Yeah. And it kind of got worse from there. So once he was in the cage, they go into the old house, right?
Yeah,
The
and
the
it's
old
revealed that
plantation house,
his great
right?
grandfather was a werewolf and
Yep.
was a monster. Like he
And like,
he would turn into a werewolf and just hunt people for the fun of it. He was just, he's the one who made the head honcho Hector into the werewolf. A horrible, horrible man for all if I could even call him that. Because,
well, what did he do though outside of being horrible? He turned all of his slaves into werewolves.
yeah.
Yeah. And
Though
then, so that and being the guy that you're talking about that comes to town.
yeah. And, apparently, because the werewolf logic in this is kind of weird. It's almost like they're vampires in a way. Like they don't age. You
Right.
know, like Hector is like 100 something years old maybe, and
Yeah.
well, I mean, regular werewolf stuff. They don't like silver. And it's kind of like, is he really a bad guy though? I mean, he's kind of pissed over the pigs, but like he was just chilling out in the woods, with his, which is kind of where
Yeah.
it just kind of flops.
Yeah, and I think the sort of quote unquote villain reveal, right? The what do they call it?
The
The
big
speech
reveal.
of the villain where yeah, at the very end of any movie with a villain, there's always a moment where the villain is kind of he divulges like the story, like this is why I am the way that I am. These are my motivations. It's a very common trope, which is why it has a name. I can't remember it. I wish I did. It's like praise of the villain. I can't remember, but it's when the villain thinks they've won, right? And so they're like,
Uh huh.
okay, I have the hero in my clutches. I'm gonna tell everything, and you'll see this pattern repeated throughout not just superhero movies, but like all kinds of
Oh, it's
movies.
in a lot of stuff.
And in that,
It's a trope at this
yeah,
point. I'm sure it's on TV
right.
tropes.
Oh yeah, and at this point in the book, I was hoping to have some kind of I don't know, like this is when you really want to empathize. And yes, his great great grandfather, whoever it was, did terrible terrible things to these people, but you never got the sense that this guy or the quote unquote villains were like tortured souls, you know? Like I never really felt like yes, they're doing these bad things because of what happened to them. They just came out the gate like, generic evil bad boss, big baddie
Yeah,
kind of
it
thing.
was just kind of like, it's almost kind of like because like the first half, like they don't really do much. They're not really. I mean, if I remember, they do some stuff to Frank because Frank is related to, the guy who turned them all. So I mean, which is how the story kind of comes into play. Um, but kind of what throws me is like it's not. It's kind of like he just goes from dude minding his own business to super villain, and it just kind of, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it didn't feel like there was
I mean,
a
I
nice
imagine he'd be
sort of
pissed off at. Like his motivation makes sense, but I don't like how it was executed. I'll put it that way. I have issues with how
yeah,
it was
exactly.
executed.
That's exactly what I said. Like I can totally understand why he would be that kind of person, but I didn't feel it on the page. It wasn't executed in such a way where, you're like, "Oh man, I feel this tortured soul. I can totally empathize with why he's doing these things." And yeah, it was just straight up, black and white generic villain at the end and I'm like, "Oh man, this sucks."
Yeah, and like then it turned, well, he learned earlier Martin was one of the wolves.
Yep.
Never explained how, and I don't, and to be honest, I don't really think it matters. But in
Well, there's a
Eudora,
pivotal scene with Martin, right? When they're in his house.
yeah, no, no. Well, Martin tells him that there are people across the river, and if I remember, because it's been a year since I've read this, and if I remember right, he mentioned like maybe he like went across and they like bit him or something. I don't know. I don't think he explains how it happened, but he he turned. He's one of the werewolves basically, and then he
Yeah.
dies trying to help his buddy Frank.
Yeah, there's kind of like this, last stand sort of scene where they're in the house, and I think they're like boarding up the windows and stuff. And I can't remember if they like have moonshine or something. They're trying to like use them as Molotov cocktails. I
Yeah,
can't remember. It's
yeah.
been so long. Yeah,
Um,
but yeah, the Martin reveal was disappointing to me because again, he was my favorite character up until the way he kind of resolved his character arc. Because he was just such an interesting guy, and I was really curious how he was gonna play a part in the story. And that part he played, unfortunately disappointing. But even after this, I mean, this is when things really get batshit, right? This is when he gets out. Our protagonist survives, and then he goes and finds his old army buddies, and they're like,
this is
"Let's
where.
go."
Oh, here's
Yeah,
okay. So he gets rescued by Martin and Eudora. Well, I guess they're in werewolf form. I'm not entirely sure, but he goes on the lam with Eudora, and this was the part where it almost like lost me there for a minute. And I'm just like, oh fuck. So he's hanging out with his wife. He's just baffled by what's going on. He's like, what the fuck? And then he's like, you know what? This sucks. I'm gonna have to kill her. I guess this is what's gonna happen now. Then he gets his gun. He gets a gun out, points it, and then he like slips and shoots the gun like into the bed or something. And I'm like, what? You remember that? You remember he just like
yeah,
it's
yeah,
almost
yeah.
like he slips and falls and just shoots. And I'm like, what was that? Like, look, I
Three
get Frank is
Stooges
supposed
action,
to be
man.
kind of a goober, but
Yeah,
he's not stupid.
right.
Now, if it was just like he couldn't bring himself to do it and he just shot like the bed next to her and then just like left, like okay, fine. But no, he just like it baffles me. That
Yeah,
was the one where I'm like, what the fuck, you know? Like
yeah.
I don't know what you think.
Oh, I agree with you wholeheartedly. But let's keep pushing forward to the hilarity that ensues after that,
Oh
though. Like
God,
when the
he gets his
yeah, I mean,
so he gets his fucking motley crew of like World War I buddies together, and he's like, "All right, we're gonna go kill these fucking werewolves." And they're like, and
yeah,
one
it's
of them's
like
like this psychopath, like straight out of fucking like straight out of a fucking crime novel. This dude's like this psychotic like maniac who's just like a friend of Frank's. They go over there, they shoot all the fucking werewolves, or I think they shoot like either most of them or all of them, and then Frank's
well, they
like,
fail though.
"Oh yeah," and then Frank's just
They
like,
fail. That is the thing.
oh yeah, they fail. That's right. Like I'm like,
Yeah, they do kill some of them, but they get in this situation where like they're jacked. Some of them die, I think, if I remember correctly. There's only like what, two or three of them
yeah,
total?
it was like three of them if I remember
Yeah,
right.
three total. Yeah, and they basically botch the entire thing, and they're like, "All right, I guess we're not gonna win,"
Yeah,
and
I
like
know. And he
that's
just kind of
that's
shrugs
kind
and
of it.
fucks off back to Chicago. I'm like, what the fuck was that?
Yeah, exactly, exactly. That's what I'm saying about Buehlman. He's got all these beautiful like nuggets, right? He's
So
got the
bad.
like the dark history, the familial history, right? He's
Mm.
got fucking werewolves. He's got these cool pagan like rituals where he's sending pigs out into the woods. He's got this quirky guy Martin right at the center of it. You're like, who is this guy? He has the PTSD stuff, which I thought was really interesting. It just never fully connected with me. So he's got all these great nuggets of things, but just like to like put them all together in a meaningful way is where I think he faltered with this one.
it I'm still kind of baffled by like I get what he was like going for, if that's right, if that makes sense.
Well, explain that. What was he going for?
It I mean, it's kind of giving away the ending, or well, we're spoiling this.
Well,
It's
we've
fine.
already spoiled the hell out of the
Well,
novel.
yeah, where I'm like, well, we're spoiling this, but like I wanted to wait a little bit, but so yeah, he gets his buddies. They shoot most of them, if I remember right, but they
Yep.
don't get all of them. And then Frank's just like, "Fuck it, I'm going back home. I'm done with this." And
Yeah,
then you're like, "What
that's
the
it.
fuck was that?" And
Yep.
then he's all like, "I see you, Dora," and she's like, "It's like classic horror ending, you know, where he's like, she's coming for me, you know,
But who is she with?
the black kid."
Yes. What the fuck? That was the weirdest fucking thing. I don't know. I thought it was weird to have that kid be the last one. I don't know. I just viewed him more as like a creep factor kind of character,
Didn't he get
like a
like? If I remember, I don't remember this in the book, but I remember someone on. I was looking on Reddit the other day, kind of regain some like not regain memory, but like just kind of refresh in my memory. And some dude's like, it's sort of that. Doesn't he either like threaten? Doesn't Hector like threaten to rape Eudora, or does he actually do it? I don't remember.
I think he threatens to do it. I don't think he ever does it, if I remember correctly.
Oh, okay. I was kind
I
of like
think I could be wrong. It's
I was kind
again,
of
it's been
confused
I don't
about
even know how
that
long.
because I'm like, because I saw some people going like, oh, they're kind of going to that kind of stereotype of the black guys running around raping white people, you know. I'm like, no,
Dude, I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you,
people are weird.
people come up with the weirdest shit, man. I'm like, are you kidding me? I hate that when I read a book and then someone makes a comment that's just like so tone deaf and like retarded. It's just like, wow, man. Yeah, I never would have thought that in a million years.
I know I
And
didn't think of that either, but I was just kind of like, oh, okay, that's I,
yeah,
that's your prerogative, man. But
yeah. But she's like with this kid, right? Like
yeah,
with
she's
him,
like,
like it
yeah.
almost felt like a romantic ish kind of thing, right? Like
Was
companions.
it? I thought it was more like a son thing, like a mother
Oh,
son thing.
really?
I don't know.
Maybe you're right.
But it's
Again, it's
so
been a long
it's
time.
so bizarre. Like it's just like it really. The thing I find that kind of sucks about the ending is that it kind of lacks resolution. It just kind of
Um,
stops.
yeah, I mean, and maybe that's the point, right? Because he was fighting these battles in his head, and I believe it's way in the future, right? Like he's old, he's an older man
Yeah.
when we're at the very end, and so it's a lot of time has passed. He's failed his his quote unquote marriage, his or his relationships. He failed sort of saving her, killing the werewolves. He failed to get the demons out of his head, and so I can appreciate an unresolved ending in in that regard, where you're like, a protagonist tries and tries and tries, and then they just fail. It's a tragedy. That's what that is. You don't see that often. Most stories are comedies, meaning there is a winner. The good guy wins usually.
Well,
It's because like
that wasn't really what I meant. It just kind of not really that it felt like I like I felt like if he had just won and like murdered all the werewolves and got with Eudora, that just would have been kind of stupid, kind of tacky, a little bit.
yeah, I know. Maybe he questioned that. He's like, well, this is going to be a stupid ending. What else can I do? And I think the issue with it though was it felt like Eudora just kind of like went along with it. She's like, "Oh, I'm a werewolf now, and I'm gonna just be buddy buddy with the werewolves." Like, I don't know. There was no. Again, it kind of feeds back to what I was talking about with Eudora. She just felt super like a flat character, like not a real person. You know?
Yeah, no, it just kind of. I guess it bothered me because it's like he he shoots at her, whatever the hell that was. Then he goes off, gets his buddies, goes over, kill the werewolves. They don't get them all. He's like, fuck it, I'll just go back to wherever I was at. And then that's just
Yeah.
where, like I said, it just kind of stops. Like I don't mind like kind of, like you said, when you make it sound like, I don't mind those kind of endings where there's still kind of questions after, but it just kind of felt like it like halted, you know. It,
Yeah,
it
I
it
agree.
didn't feel like there was finality to it, I guess is what I meant. Like, even with endings that leave questions, there's still like a finality, I think. At least in my opinion. I could
Yeah.
be wrong.
No, no, no. You're right. Yeah, I agree with that. I totally
It's
agree with
almost
that.
like he
But yeah, I
stopped it in the
guess
middle of the story, I guess. It's almost like if he
yeah.
did that.
And my I guess part of my problem is that I was so frustrated by this novel at that point that, when I get frustrated with a book, I stop, I don't want to say paying attention, but I stop paying attention to the nuance. And so it's hard for me to really talk in a detailed or, clear manner about how I feel from a story structural standpoint at that. Because by then I was like, this book sucks. I was like, this book's broken. I don't care what happens next. And, when you're not invested in a story, it's hard to really pick it apart in a in a way that's constructive.
Yeah, but I guess if I could put it this way, it's kind of like he stopped it at the middle of the story, pretty much. Or something like that.
Kind of. I don't. I mean, it felt like an end in a way, but like you said, it felt like an empty end. An empty end. It. I don't think I would want it to like go on for another 400 pages, though. I don't think
Well,
that's the book I
maybe
wanted.
not, but I mean, like, as if, I guess is what I should have said. It's as if he stopped it, like, in the middle of the story, and you're like, that's it, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Exactly.
But, I mean, it's not, like, there is, like, I get the ending is supposed to be, like, sad, but I don't, like, feel it, you know?
Yeah, and I think that's a feeling of the characterization, right? It's taking Frank and Eudora and their broken relationship and feeling that sorrow or that loss between them. Same thing with his how he just didn't resolve anything. And I think that's why again you didn't really feel for it just because it wasn't successfully communicated along the way.
I mean, if I ever interviewed Christopher Buehlman, I would probably ask him what he was going for with the ending, just out of curiosity, and not to be like, I'm not gonna be like a dick about it, but I'm just kind of like what were you like? What were you thinking when you wrote the end? Like, what were you wanting to say? Like, what were you trying to say with the ending? Like what did you want to convey with that? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always cool it's really neat that, I mean, you probably could interview him. I'm sure he'd be open to it. He seems like a pretty accessible guy. But he, that is interesting to be able to talk to the author directly because this is really the only age and time you could do that. Like anybody could
I know.
call up Brandon Sanderson. It's fucking awesome, right? And actually ask them like, what were you intending for this? And I think that would be a cool question for him just to see how he felt about it now. Like, is he still happy with the novel? I don't know.
This was his
Was
first
it an
novel, if I
editor?
remember right. This was his
Oh,
first
this is his
novel.
first novel.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
Um.
Okay.
Yeah. So I mean, though I did also notice that problem with the Black Tongue Thief, but then again with the Black Tongue Thief, I was just kind of wasn't feeling it in general. Like this book, I was really into it until around like the second half where he gets captured and it just kind of flops to a just
Yeah. Yeah.
flails. Um, but it's I mean, but I did have some similar issues with Black Tongue Thief. Like there were moments like he was trying to pull emotion. I'm just kind of like, what the fuck? Like there's no context here. Like you know, and there's some of that in
Yep.
here as well. And that's kind of how I felt about with the. I feel like there's like context missing. Like at
Well,
the
I think
end.
part of it is, yeah, I agree. I mean, that's the tricky thing about writing characters and evoking emotion in a stranger like you or me, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is that you're like, am I giving enough to them to empathize with this character?
Mm-hmm.
So they will buy these emotional beats, right? And it seems to me like he wasn't giving us enough, both of us, you and me, to really feel these moments. But yeah, that's always a tricky thing. It's like, what's enough? What's too much? It's always a delicate balancing act.
Yeah, it's it almost feels like there's scenes that are left out, I guess. Like I am
Yeah.
wondering like if Frank met Eudora later. You know, I don't
Or if
know.
she was like from this area, he came here by himself, and she was one of the people, and then that would be sort of like a little twist, right?
Yeah,
So
and
they
that
fall in love, you know.
like
Been
that would.
done, been done,
I mean,
but
you could do that. I'm sure people would be like, "Oh, I saw that a mile away," but same thing.
yeah, it's been done. It's been, but
Yeah,
again, most stories have been done. All stories have been.
but
But
I
yeah,
don't know. It's like there's like context missing. I guess I don't know why, but it's just kind of weird. I don't know how to describe it instead of just like it feels like there's pieces that are missing that I kind of want to see.
I think he spent a lot of time with the first part of the novel. That's why it's so good. Like
Mm-hmm.
he was really, he probably went over that over and over and over again, and then it felt like, man, he just didn't really know where he wanted the story to go, and he's like, all right, I'm just going with this idea, and it just felt like this mad rush of just the most random shit up until the end, and I don't know, it's hard to know. Again, you never know. Like this could have been an editor's pressure, right? This could have been an editor. Like he gives
Maybe.
the draft, and they're like, hey, this is what I think you need to do. Like you said, if it's his first book, generally there's a lot of pressure on writers to, you don't push back. You just say, okay, I'll figure it
Maybe
out.
that's another thing. I'm like I'm curious what he would. I'm curious because it's been because when did this book come out? Let me look see if it says anything. No. Come on, man. No, I'll look it up on the internet here. The book
2011.
2011. So it's been 12 years. Wow, that's crazy. Um,
This is the quote that bothered me now that I'm looking it up, though. So this is a marketing quote. As much F. Scott Fitzgerald as Dean Koontz.
oh yeah, it's on the
Yeah.
back here. Patricia Briggs said that.
Yeah, nah. Nah.
I mean, I can. I mean, I've never really read Dean Koontz. I've always kind of been like, he's always given that kind of poor man Stephen King vibe to me. No offense to Dean Koontz if he ever watches this, he probably
Oh,
won't. But
he's laughing in his pot of, his room of cash, so
yeah, exactly.
you're not gonna offend him.
F. Scott Fitzgerald, maybe it has a similar kind of lightness of. It's not quite as poetic as his work is, but I can definitely kind of see that. It definitely has that lightness of, from what I've read of his work anyway. But yeah, I can see that. But yeah, I don't know what happened here. It's like this could have been a great this would have been like a damn, this was really good, and I still like it. Like it's kind of like if I 3-star maybe, and that's three star
Yeah,
for me.
I'd agree with that. I would agree.
Um,
There's enough good things about it that I would give it that
um,
for sure.
but the ending was just like, just didn't. It wasn't satisfying. That's a good thing to put it. It wasn't I mean, again, I know what he was going for. Now that I thought about it for a while, which
Yeah.
I guess I should kind of get into this, but at the same time, like it kind of doesn't work because because the villain is kind of thin.
Yes.
Like you're just like
Yes.
yes.
I'm agreeing with you. Yeah. What was the thing you were gonna bring? Didn't you say when you were asking me about having this conversation, you said there's something that clicked with me.
Yes, I was about to
What is
talk
that?
about that. Well, it was because I thought about the ending. I'm just like, what the fuck? Like, what was he trying to go for? Like, what is? So I then thought about like, okay, what is this book about? It's about, I guess, in like terms of what the message is of the book. What is he trying to say? Well, he's talking about how the past to quote The Gift. Did you see that movie, The Gift? Joel Edgerton's in it. Jason
Oh yeah,
Fuhrman's
yeah,
in
yeah.
it.
Yep,
There's a line in that
yep.
movie. You might be done with the past, but the past isn't done with you. That's basically what I think the message is of this book. Well,
Yeah, like sins of the fathers cannot be. That's one thing I didn't think about till now. Now that you're bringing that up, is that maybe Buehlman wanted to have him fail to show that you cannot make up for the sins of the father, essentially, right?
yeah, sure.
Maybe.
But it's just, but what kind of clicked for me is like, well, Hector, the main antagonist, had something taken from him that cannot be taken back. He is no longer a human, basically. So basically the end of the book is him taking revenge on Frank by proxy, because
Yeah.
he can't get revenge on the guy who turned him. I mean, he already did, but he got turned into a werewolf as a result. So he decides, I'm just gonna fuck with this guy. I'm gonna make him feel the pain that I feel every single day. So so basically he takes Eudora away from him, and like that's like that's his revenge basically. Now, there's some holes in there because it's like I don't. Again, the villain is kind of thin, Like there's still a lot of problems, but that's kind of what I got when I thought about it after a while. And finally was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah.
okay.
He's trying to do that. I don't know. Yeah, it felt too just expected. And again, I never really felt like I never really gave a shit about Eudora. She never felt like a real person to me. So it was just kind of like, okay, I don't know. Because I think you want it to feel like Eudora was taken away from you as well, right? Not that
Sure,
you guys
yeah.
are literally together, but like that you're emotionally attached to this character. And when he took her away, I'm like, oh, I don't give a shit. She's kind of like boring.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's just kind of like, I mean, I just think, like, you could have done this. I think it could have been done better, but I think that's what, like, I think that's what Hector wanted in one way or another. Not just to, like, kill him, but he wanted to hurt him in a way that can't be taken back.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true.
That's my theory.
I,
Buehlman might be like, what
I,
the
get-
fuck are you talking about? That's not at all what I was saying.
I guess it's kind of like we were talking about before you recorded was the Lost Boys. It's almost kind of like that in a way. I guess that is the story I'm talking about where the girl is part of this group
Mm-hmm.
and Eudora is not, but when I was talking about earlier where maybe Eudora was from the town,
Yeah.
it's kind of like that story. And again, that's why that story is so effective though, because there's a conflict. There's inherent conflict there. You have this quote unquote damsel in distress that you want to save, but little do you know, she's not what you think she is.
Oh, yeah.
Um,
Uh, I do enjoy The Lost Boys a lot. It's it's a great film.
it's a good one.
I'll admit I watched it because I liked Kiefer Sutherland from 24, and I'm like, ooh, he's in this movie. I'm gonna watch it, and then I did.
Wow, that's an interesting way to do it. So you watched him on 24 and then went back in time.
Yeah, I decided to look for other
Okay.
movies he'd been in, and I'm like, oh, Lost Boys, that's vampires, that's cool. And there's that scene where he gets thrown into the antlers. Oh God.
Yep.
Oh. Looks so See, Joel Schumacher can make good movies when he puts his mind to the task. It's not Batman
That's a
and
good
Robin. Thank God. But yeah, maybe it's not like as profound as it sounded in my head, but that was kind of what I got from the ending of Those Across the River. Like, and I mean, if you like Those Across the River and you like the ending and you have like an interpretation of it, let us know down in the comments. I mean, I'll hear it out or read it anyway.
Yeah, I probably should look more into this book because generally if I don't care for a book, I just kind of don't even research it after the fact and see what other people thought about it. Unless it's like they really love it and I'm trying to figure out like, okay, what do these people see in it? But yeah, I think it'd be worth checking out to see if there's some things I missed and different interpretations. But I think yours is pretty spot on, right?
Mm-hmm.
They took Eudora away from him. He's forced to look at her as an old man at the very end with a very creepy filed down teeth boy that he spotted in the woods,
He
right? That
just
kind of
happened to survive the whole.
yeah, that
Just
survived all that.
yeah, just and like
So it's kind of like
it's
yeah,
weird. It's
salt in the
really
wound.
weird.
But
And like I like the final lines of the book, but again, I'm just kind of like I don't really feel it. You know, it's just kind of just
yeah, that's the hard thing to do, man, as a writer.
it's frustrating. Um, yeah, no, I still can't get out of my head him trying to like. What is it? Is it like Eudora's trying to transform and he tries to kill her or something? I don't even remember now, but it's like he tries to shoot her and it just oh man. I'm still like it must have been the editor just like giving him a hard time and he just came up with that, but I'm just again, I would really like if Christopher Buehlman, if I ever got to interview him, which I have talked to him on Twitter before, like I would just be like, what were you trying to say with the ending of this book? I'd be curious to hear what he'd have to say.
Yeah, if you ever, I remember when we first did the read along, Matt's, he tweeted my video
Mm-hmm.
and or retweeted it and tagged Buellman and he was like, "Oh, cool." But he probably, if he ever watched those videos, he's probably like, "Oh, this guy's an asshole," because I ended up not liking it. I think John Langan did the same thing when we were doing a read along. Oh, maybe that's what I'm confusing with. I know John Langan too. When we did Wide Carnivorous Sky, he responded, and that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I still need to read John Langan. I'm trying to like catch up with all like the big wigs of horror. You know,
Oh,
I
you
know
haven't read John Langan yet?
I
Wow,
haven't. No.
he to me he's one of the most unique horror writers working today. Like I don't
Yeah,
always like his stuff, but he is you can tell he's a fucking writer. Like he's exploring things. He's not sticking to the same safe styles or themes. So I enjoy his stuff a lot. I do need. I know he just came out with one recently, another collection,
oh, did he? I didn't know that.
or maybe it was a year ago. It's kind of recent.
I mean, I am reading Between Two Fires right now, and pretty. I'm intrigued so far. It's. I really like the apocalyptic atmosphere of that story. Um,
Yeah,
it's
there's
kind
a
of
lot of
odd.
stuff I love about that book, but there's so
Um,
much that I don't like.
it's a bit episodic. I noticed it's kind of it's interesting. So I haven't gotten too far in, but I'm just kind of I'm just kind of weighing the. I'm curious to see how I'll think when I get around to the end of it. I mean, the copy I have. Let me. I mean, this is it. It's a chunky boy. So only
Is
like
it really long? I didn't even realize. I don't
no,
remember it
it's
being super long.
434, so not too long, but I'm curious to see how it'll go. Is what I'm curious about because you know
Yeah, it goes a certain way. I'll tell you that.
I know you read. Also, I was gonna mention this. I also noticed sort of it's darker in tone than the Black Tongue Thief, but there's certain things about
Yes.
it I could see he implemented later into Black Tongue Thief, especially like the humorous bits.
Yeah. I think Between Two Fires is the best book I've read. It's not it's good, but like it I don't know. I don't want to spoil anything for you, but it definitely falters toward the end of it for me anyway. But there's a lot of really, really cool stuff in it. Like just imagery, there's just weird shit in it that I really enjoyed.
I mean, I also like the idea that it's kind of going with that like hell brought on the bubonic plague.
Yeah. Yeah, that I don't know. I'm really that's you know, speaking of being bored of vampires, I'm very bored of just like angels and demons and possessions and like biblical prophecies and apocalyptic, you know, biblical apocalypse. I'm just so fucking bored of that stuff. But there's still some really cool shit in that book though. Have you got to the part in the river yet when they're like There's
Oh,
like a creature in the river.
is it when they fight like that frog? I'm just there. Like that's where I got
That
to.
part's that's like one of my favorite parts. Yeah,
He grabs
that's
the
really
like
cool.
little hand, his little hand.
Yeah, there's like a human hand. You're like, what the fuck? Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, no. But aside from that, I mean, those across the river. I mean, it's a solid book. I don't think it's a terrible book by any means. I mean, I'd recommend it, but just keep in mind if you don't really like it faltering towards the end, then maybe don't read it. But I think it's worth the time.
Yeah, it's okay. I don't know that if you're seeking out a werewolf book, I don't think this is the book though. There are werewolves in it, but it's not like werewolf focused, if that makes sense.
Sure, yeah. I mean, I've this. I mean, I'm reading or I think I mentioned this, but I'm reading Mongrels from Stephen Graham Jones right now, and I just started that today actually. Um, which is one I've
How
been
many
looking
books are you reading
forward
at
to.
the same time?
What?
How many books are you reading at the same time?
Um, Usually two.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I completed Matt's book last night. That was, but kind of it was a quick read. Wasn't very long.
I think it's like 60,000 words, yeah.
Did didn't you read it? Like, didn't
Yeah.
you read it? Yeah.
I have a signed copy. Signed. I brought it to Sweden and he signed it for me.
Awesome. Yeah. Um, what did Max think of those across the river? I'm curious about that.
I don't. I think he might have quit. Matt's kind of quietly quits books when we do read-alongs if he doesn't like them. Like every once in a while, I'll say, "Hey, what do you think?" And he's like, "Oh, I stopped reading that a while back." So I don't know if he ever finished it, um, but I feel like this would have been a book that I know he started it anyway. I don't know how far I got into it.
I will note I was disappointed in the Beast of Saint Ender that there wasn't any werewolves in it, and I know he knows that, but I I'm never not gonna be upset about that. But yeah, I mean, hey, if anyone knows any other quality werewolf books or content, please let me know because I I freaking love werewolves, man.
I can give you one. I can't attest to this because I haven't read it, but when I asked my community on YouTube, "Hey, give me some horror recommendations," uh, Wainwright, the Falcon Reads himself, he mentioned one called Skin Medicine by Tim Curran. It's a genre mashup of Western and folk horror with werewolves thrown in for good measure, he says. He
oh,
said it really got under his skin. The cover is terrible, but I trust his judgment. He has pretty good taste. So
what's it
I have
called?
that on my
Skinned
list. It's called Skin Medicine,
Skin Medicine. Okay,
and it's a Western folk horror mashup with werewolves.
all right.
But he said it really got under his skin, so who knows? He said it's brutal, explicit, and pretty damn effective. He read it when he was in high school, though, so you never know.
Cover isn't that great, I guess.
That's what I'm saying. The
Not
cover's not
terrible.
good, but the reviews are pretty good, if I remember correctly.
Oh yeah, I might add that to my list actually. That's
Yeah,
interesting.
it's on my list for sure.
But yeah, no, those across the river is yeah, it's pretty good. I mean, if you like werewolves, you'll enjoy it. I enjoyed it.
Three out of five, 3 stars, right?
Yeah, yeah, three out
I'll
of
agree with
five.
that. I give it 3 stars.
Like 3.5. I'm being nice, but like my actual score is like 3 out of 5.
I like how you have two scores, one when you're being nice and one that's the real one.
Yeah, no, it's but yeah, no, if you but yeah, I guess that's it. Jason, you have any final thoughts on this book?
No, I mean it's again, Buehlman's one of those writers where I keep going back to because he's a good writer. Just I think plot wise and character wise, sometimes it falters. So I don't know. Maybe one day I'll find a book of his that I really enjoy. But again, if this is something I can't recommend this book. And if you're looking for a werewolf book, I don't think this is the one for you. But I don't know. If you're looking for a 1930s read in a cozy little southern town with some a dash of Sins of the Fathers, maybe you should check it out.
Fair enough. Yeah, no, I'd agree with that. I mean, if you like, it's a good spooky read. I'll give it that. It has the same. It has the kind of atmosphere. You know, it's almost Southern Gothic at points. Um, but yeah, no, I don't really have much else to say. Rather than it's pretty good. Though could have been better, especially towards the end. And I'm still
I
kind of upset
agree.
about it. But I will.
There's so
Um,
many more books. We're okay.
yeah, I know, right? There's too many. It's too many to count. Um, but yeah, no. So now my October spooky reads is on. So, Jason, if you want to share your stuff real quick, feel free.
Oh, sure. Yeah. Just look me up on YouTube. That's where I post most of my stuff. I have a website too that I don't update very often, jasonfuhrman.com. But yeah, YouTube is where you want to find me.
Fair enough. You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, also Goodreads and Letterboxd, also Discord. So yeah, not much else. Um, yeah, no, that's about it. You know, it's yeah, first big spooky read I'm gonna be talking about. Should be fun.
Yeah, good time. Thanks for having me on, man.
Yeah, no problem at all. All right, until next time. I'll see you guys later.